All right. Hello and welcome back to the Plumbify Podcast. For those of you who don't know, I'm Luke, Plumbify's operations manager, and today we'll be interviewing Plumbify's founder, managing director, and self-proclaimed plumbing king, Matt Zubrinich. How are you? And how's the other side of the table feel?
Good, mate. It's Zubrinich, just saying.
Zubrinich.
Yeah, it's Australian. He probably was Zubrinich.
I think I'm doing the European way. I'm doing it the proper way. That's just changing.
Australian. It's Zubrinich. Yeah, it feels weird, man. I'm slightly nervous, to be honest.
That's all right. I think today I just want to give the opportunity for clients, staff, tradies, aspiring business owners, bit of an insight of the roots of Plumbify.
Let's go.
So I guess for that, we'll start with where the journey began. How'd you find plumbing? And as well, what were your aspirations before you found plumbing?
Well, I'll start off by saying I had no aspirations, man. Pretty much was a pretty troubled teenager. Not because I had good parents and everything like that. I just, for whatever reason, I just didn't get along with school very well. You know, so I had pretty much no real aspirations. I don't have like a really good story about how I got into plumbing in regards to like always wanted to be a plumber and like, did TAFE, like, Cert 2 or anything like that. I was lucky that I fell into plumbing basically. But if I didn't, yeah, definitely could have gone either way, man. Who knows where I was going at that point. So basically my story is that I did 2 weeks of year 12 and I got suspended 3 times. So, and I don't even know why I started year 12. I was never going to finish it. So then I thought, I'll cut my losses and I'll quit because my mum was going to an early grave. So I basically quit, school, and then I just carried on with my part-time job, stacking shelves at Big W. I think I did that. Hey?
No.
Yeah, I think I did that for maybe about 4 or 5 months because I reckon I started my apprenticeship pretty close to the start of the financial year, I reckon. Mid-year I started it.
Yeah.
And then because Mum worked in a school, she just basically begged the careers counsellor, that was a good friend, to just help me do something because at that point all I was doing was going to do night fill at Big W, waking up at like 11 o'clock in the morning and, then just pissing around all day, doing stupid shit, and all my mates were at school, so had no one to hang out with. Going to do night fill at night and then just getting into all sorts of strife afterwards, mostly related to cars.
Yeah.
Cars are my weakness.
Yeah.
So I wasn't like doing drugs or anything like that, but I was starting to hang out with some people I probably shouldn't have hung out with. And so Mum got me work experience with the careers counsellor, organised it with TAPS. I did 2 weeks work experience with Wayne Bennett's, who had a company called Bennett's Plumbing, and then he's pretty well known in the plumbing industry, he became the head SA water inspector.
Cool.
So he basically shut his business. So he agreed to take me on, and then I went through TAPS. I did about 8 or 9 months with Wayne, I reckon. And then Wayne, unknowingly to me, but Wayne was hitting like retirement age at that point, and he just hit me with one day, so I'm shutting the business. You're gonna have to go back to TAPS. So and at that point, he actually got a job with SA Water.
Yeah.
So he was just done with running a business, and he was getting on. So he still worked for SA Water for at least 10 years, I reckon. And then I went and did new homes plumbing for probably 2.5 years, I reckon, till I was about halfway through my 3rd year. And luckily enough, at that point, I had the self-awareness to realise that I probably wasn't learning as much as I should have been learning. Don't want to answer questions before you ask them or anything like that, but and just so people know, I don't know what these questions are either, do I?
No.
So I might get caught out here. And then, then I went to another company called PA Plumbers in Adelaide, PAP, and that was probably the best move I made because I just sort of was doing like schools and commercial work, and I was running jobs, man. I had no idea what I was doing. I was running commercial jobs and everything. But it was a pretty big wake up call when I got there. I realised that I actually didn't know anything. I knew I was doing
drains and piping colds,
and I was doing them without even looking at the plan at the end. Like I knew the measurements off the top of my head, and it was like when I sort of woke up one day, I reckon, and I just was like, I'm doing these underfloors. I don't even need to read the plan anymore. Like I'm halfway through my 3rd year. Something needs to change. So yeah, then how far did we go?
So I want
All
the
the
I
way
want
to
the
when,
until the apprentice. Till
okay.
you finish your apprenticeship.
And then I finished my apprenticeship with PA Plumbers, and I stayed there for maybe a couple of years. I loved it there. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Actually.
A lot of like variety, different.
Massive
Yeah.
variety, man. I was doing so much different stuff, like council work, schools, like a little bit of mum and dad's work, big commercial jobs. So I got like a real vast skill set, I suppose, when I was working there. And that's pretty much got me to where I am today. So looking back on that decision to leave my second employer was like one of the best decisions I made, even though back then I was still a kid who didn't know it. Very switched on, I don't think. But yeah, it was lucky I made that decision, and yeah, man, finished my apprenticeship with PAP, and the story goes on from there.
I guess obviously you didn't have much direction before your apprenticeship, so I guess you found that when you just happened to like fall into it, you found the direction when you're going through it. So what value do you think you got out of an apprenticeship that isn't kind of related to plumbing skill? So what, like, what personal learnings did you get out of that, like life skills? How'd that set you up? Because obviously before you're starting to go down a bad path, and it seems like you got on it. Obviously you're where you are today. So
I think, man, it was just the first two employers I had, Wayne and where I went to do new homes, I just learned work ethic, man. And you just get used to it. So I was working hard, man. And the first few months was a shock, but after that it was like nothing to me. It was like it's all I knew. So I guess I learned a lot about work ethic, and I had a lot of people that, especially even from the new homes, like people who mentored me, I suppose, like Ryan Blair from Blair Plumbing. Give him a shout out. He definitely mentored me a bit when I was young. He was only a young fella too, but he was probably only about 24 or 25, but he sort of took me under his wing and helped me grow and develop. And then when I went to PAP, I had other people who, helped me grow and develop. So I would say, at that point in time, I don't think I learned heaps about life.
Yeah.
I think most of it came after that, but I pretty much learned just to work damn hard, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, you look back at it and you go, that's where I learned.
Yeah.
That's where I learned it from.
Like, I always go back to the Steve Jobs quote, man, where he says, all the dots only connect when you look backwards.
Yeah.
And it's so true. So at the time when I left Purdy's, that's where I was doing the new homes, I was packing my DAX, and all I knew that it was that I was comfortable. I had the self-awareness enough at that age I was pretty young then. I was maybe only 18 or 19 because I started my apprenticeship at 16 and a half, basically, to know that I wasn't learning enough, but I didn't know all I knew that I was comfortable and I probably needed to get uncomfortable again. And it's all those moments of everything I can look back to that's helped me grow has been from me being in an uncomfortable situation.
I think it's a really good message to give to apprentices about getting uncomfortable. Go outside your comfort zone and try to progress yourself. Like during your apprenticeship, that's what it's for. You got 4 years of learnings, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's one thing. Like when I speak to kids, outside of school, outside of work, when I speak to them in schools and stuff, and one of the big things I like to drill into them, man, is that you need to be always uncomfortable. Uncomfortable decisions are, if they feel uncomfortable to make them, they're usually the right decision.
Yeah. So after your apprenticeship, you spent 2 years being a tradesman. Did you set 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you set 4? And then why'd you go out and start your own business? What encouraged you? Obviously, you sound like you had a pretty good gig where you were. So, it takes a different type of person to leave that and make that uncomfortable decision, start your business. So,
well, I'll rewind it a bit. Is that probably in my maybe end of my third year, I started doing extra studies for my Cert 4.
Yeah,
so I started doing back then it was like waste disposal too, and like business studies So by maybe less than a year out of my apprenticeship, I reckon I'd finished like my gas course, and I could have a contractor's license, maybe about 1 year after finishing my apprenticeship. But I did leave PAP, so distant memory now, but I left PAP because I was chasing more money. you know,
Yeah.
and I went and worked for another company that I won't name the company, but I just really didn't enjoy it there. I didn't enjoy the bosses or anything, and I think a lot of that has to come back to myself too, because I was just a little prick, basically, little arrogant prick. To be honest, I honestly think I probably was. So I definitely wasn't the best employee either, and but I think I just didn't like listening to the man, if you know what I mean, for lack of a better word. So yeah, I was always considering starting a business, but you know what? At the same time, Luke, again, like I didn't always have aspirations to start a business.
Yeah, it's like the tradies dream, like go out and start your own business, and then you've got the perfect work-life balance and a lot of money. So that's the that's the assumption, isn't it? And really, and I guess that's what
it is.
What you followed. So.
And it all happened because essentially, just to be, wrap it up, is I was working for this company, wasn't happy. Then my dad had a heart attack, very unexpectedly, and like he was totally fine now. And he was, he was in hospital for a few weeks or whatever, but that was just like that catalyst moment for me where I was like, nah, life's pretty short. Even though I don't 100% know that this is what I want to do, like start a business, I just thought, it's too short. So basically quit, and I didn't have any customers or anything. I just started my own business.
Yeah. So no customers, you just quit, started your own. So how'd you learn? How'd you learn how? Did you just do it yourself? Just Google, video, YouTube? Like,
honestly, I just learned everything myself. I learned, and looking back on it, I did everything the shittest way.
Yeah.
Well, like at the start, had all the worst accounting softwares, had like really shit accountant, like just everything at the start. No systems, nothing, and you just build on that.
Yeah, I guess we'll get into a bit advice a bit later about, tips for people that want to start, but like obviously from going from no customer base, how'd you build into, or how'd you find the niche that we're in now? So obviously not just plumbers, we're leak detection. We just do mainly business work. How'd you discover that? Yeah, and why'd you stick with it?
Yeah, when I started, I don't have a really great memory, to be honest with you. Like,
that's good for a podcast.
Back that far, it's like I've got to reflect a bit now. But yeah, I guess I started off doing, like everyone does, like an ad in the messenger and like Gumtree ads, and getting just heaps of really crap customers that you don't want. And then just over time, you meet people, and then they move to somewhere, and then you're suddenly doing their work. And I was doing a lot of real estate agents and stuff. And yeah, like it is a bit of a blur now. I can't really exactly recall sort of how I built my customer base, but I guess I did get to a point maybe two or probably 3 years in where a guy I knew through, I reckon I must have met him on Gumtree or something, like, and then I started doing some houses that he was building on the side, and then he went and worked for an insurance builder still around in Adelaide, but basically the biggest insurance builder. And he started asking me, like, oh, can you do leak detection reports for me? I was like, yep, I can. Not knowing what it was. No idea what I was doing. But at that point in time, you can't, like, beggars can't be choosers either. So yeah, that's a wicked opportunity. And I suppose I was also thinking, like, one of the things I always had in my mind is that I don't want to be I'd never want to be caught in a race to the bottom. Like, I don't want to be competing tap washers against the next unlicensed Gumtree guy. That's just the last place you want to be.
Yeah.
So I always knew that I wanted to do something different. Then I guess I found this niche in leak detection, and I just pretty much just went for it, man. And then, yeah, it's had its challenges, and like it took me a lot. Like, I had to send myself to Sydney a bunch of times. I sent myself to Queensland a whole bunch of times. I had to learn, heaps of different skills. I had no idea what I was doing, and it was just a lot of trial and error. Started off really, really shit, and mate, you're basically just learning from my mistakes.
Yeah.
I bought a whole bunch of equipment, and, looking back on it now, it was like pretty, the lowest level stuff.
Alibaba.
Yeah. So basically. And like just the lowest entry level stuff you can get. And just taught myself how to do it. And now we're here.
So how important do you think it is for the business to have, like, there's a lot of companies out there that do a lot of work, they do abroad. Do you think it's important find a niche, like specialize?
Yeah,
Or
I definitely think it's important to have a point of difference, whether
Yeah.
that's like a niche or I guess there's other ways you can have a point of difference. But without that point of difference, you can easily get caught in a race to the bottom. I like to call it like competing on price. Yeah. I think if you can avoid the competing on price wherever you can, then there's a lot more chance of success. Because if you're just quoting jobs against Tom, Dick, and Harry on Gumtree, the customer can't distinguish you from any other plumber. It's always going to be tough.
yeah. How long have you been doing it for now? It's been a
Leak
while.
detection.
Just your business, like
I started in 2011, so nearly 13 years, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
to
So,
in diapers.
2011.
In diapers, then
Were you?
I reckon
Were you actually?
probably.
Maybe 10 or something.
Is that same?
So you were in
About
diapers
that?
then?
Yeah, basically. I suppose you learned a lot of the mistakes when you started and in that first sort of period, and then you had a bit of a rebrand. Can you tell us what sparked that? Was it just all the mistakes you made, and you just got to a point where you wanted to start again?
Yeah, pretty much. So
Good to hear the story of like the first, then how about the second, and what you took across and what you left behind.
yeah, that's a good question. So when I started the business at 24, roughly, I didn't know what I was doing. And like I actually have like I said, I don't remember that much stuff, but I vividly remember searching through like the ABN business name, like what business name can I have type thing. And I remember typing in MJZ Plumbing, which is my initials. It was taken. And I was like, I could not find a business name. There was just nothing. Even that was taken. So then I settled on, like, I've always been a car. I just love cars and, motorcycles and all that. And so I decided to call it Red Line Plumbing, which massively cringes me out now when I talk about it.
I think it's as cringy as you think it is. I mean, I think we're doing a bit better now, but
and it still has a legacy in the company because that's essentially the company name.
Yeah. What was some of the branding like when you were Redline? Did you have a little red?
Oh, you've done some
red
research
thing going
have you?
up, something like that.
Yeah, it had the E was like the E. Oh, this is the cringiest thing ever. The E turned back around on itself and became like a taco.
Yeah, did you
It
get
was
some
so
designers for
bad.
that?
I got.
That's a tip, young
Have
blokes.
you asked
don't
my
decide
missus some shit?
Just clear it up.
I got my missus friend Renee to design it for me, and she's actually a really good designer, but the brief was terrible.
Yeah.
So I don't blame her. But yeah, and then I went through this phase where I loved I still love Formula One, and then I tried to change. Well, that was originally I tried to have the colours as like Nico Rosberg had this yellow and silver helmet, and I used to love it. And so I really wanted it to be like yellow and silver colour scheme, but we couldn't really get it to work. So anyway, then we landed on some other crap colour scheme. But yeah, that went on for, man, I don't know. I was Redline Plumbing and Gas for maybe about 5 or 6 years. Then I had this little phase where I started leak detection. I thought, I'm going to also start doing pipe locating. So I thought that'd be a good idea. I thought it'd be easy. It's like really hard.
Different trade, isn't it?
It's like doing another apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And then I called, like, I had Redline Plumbing and Gas, and then I had Redline Locating, I called it. Like I said, going back, I had no idea what I was doing. And then I went to Redline Plumbing and Leak Detection. I did a little rebrand again on that. And then it was probably my youngest son was just born, and I had over this time developed a real passion for business.
Yeah.
And I was really bad at it too, but I didn't care.
You got 3 of them right there.
Yeah, 3 bad businesses, But I was like no businessman, man. Believe me, but I just decided, like, yeah, my son's out, he's healthy. My oldest son, we're not going to have another one. And then I thought, I'm going to follow my passion for business, and I'm going to try and grow the business. So then I decided to rebrand to Plumbify. And here we are. And you were like, what, the second employee?
I'm a bit salty about it as well.
Second employee. I remember that day, man. I met you in the car park at Pier.
Bugged you for the rest of that day. The end of the day, it was.
That's a good story for when I interview you. Don't give it away now.
Yeah, so I guess that's a bit of the journey so far, and like how you got here. So, what are the biggest challenges on the way? Big, broad one, but what have you faced? So you look back, think like that was hard. One other people about that, or just individuals you face along the way.
Oh, there's so many. I guess you get a little bit not numb to it, but you're just used to, like, as a business owner, man, your job is just to fix problems, you know. So, I've had a lot of challenges along the way, I suppose. You know, I've gone through like tough periods where because I was doing a lot of insurance work and I was doing it all on my own for such a long time. I've been through, you know, every bushfire in Adelaide since 2011, basically, and a lot of the, you know, like the one out in Kersbrook, can't think what it's called now. That massive bushfire that went through Kersbrook and Williamstown, and no, it was the other one.
Covey Creek, that area.
Yeah, and you know, at that point in time, I was working like 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. So there's been those like periods where you have hailstorm periods, or being all on my own, just totally overwhelmed with work, with the inability to say no. Because I was trying to, you know, as a business owner, it's really hard to say no.
Yeah, so as you start trying to grow as well, if you realise you want to grow.
Yeah.
Say yes to.
Yeah. Then obviously I've had some really challenging times with my, you know, when my first son was born, or both were born, and you know, I was just like not sleeping at all, and I was still doing all the work, all the paperwork, doing every single part of the business all on my own, while trying to be a good dad and run a business, and literally running on no sleep at all. So he was a pretty bad sleeper. So there's been all those challenges. I've had other challenges where, like, you know, me and my wife have gone away overseas, because you still have to have a life.
And,
you know, I've been to Europe and taken like 5 weeks off. So that in itself has its challenges, where you're like, I'm in Europe and my phone's ringing, and, you know, I'm taking phone calls. I'm trying to organise mates to help me out to do plumbing. It's just, but I would say, you know what, man, the biggest challenges have definitely come in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, like
trying to grow.
Yeah. Trying to learn business, I suppose. You know, I've gone from a point where I felt like, you know, I guess I did my apprenticeship. I learned everything about, I learned a lot about plumbing. Then after that, I did like a, you know, 2 or 3, you know, 2 years with a boss, and I did like a intensive apprenticeship again, where I was learning more and then I was doing the extra studies. And when I went out and worked on my own, that was like just getting really good at my craft, I suppose, like plumbing, and then also doing all the accounting and stuff along the way, all the other things you do as a business owner. Like, wasn't doing them very well at all, but I think that period, especially for the first years, was just really learning how to work effectively, quickly, efficiently, but also to a really good standard. So that was almost like another intensive like apprenticeship in regards to actual plumbing, you know?
Yeah.
And then I guess I got to a point there where I was like, felt like, not conquered plumbing, that's the wrong word, but I suppose like I've seen almost everything in a way. And like, I felt like, you know, the next step for me was then to do like a apprenticeship in business. Yeah, because I guess that's a fallacy that people have, is like, you can be, or a false belief. Yeah, you can be the best plumber or tradesperson in the world, but it doesn't mean you're a good business owner. But totally different, you know?
Yeah. What's a piece of advice you give to a tradesman? Like we said before, it's a tradie dream where you think you're just going to go out and start your own and, like, you know, be a one-man band, or if someone goes out and they want to grow and they think they're going to have a great work-life balance, like straight away they're going to work hard, they'll take the weekends off. I guess what's a piece of advice you can give to them, you know, maybe warning about the challenges or how good it can be as well?
Yeah. On a positive note to start off with, it is very rewarding, obviously. It's usually not what people think it's going to be. And probably one of the biggest things I would say is, like, if it's a maybe, it's a no. You know what I mean? Like, I've met so many people in my life who are like, thinking about starting a plumbing business. As soon as I hear thinking, it's just that's a no.
Yeah.
If it's either I want it so bad that I'll do anything to make it happen, or it's a no. That's it. Because, you know, and that's probably, it's another Steve Jobs quote. I can't exactly remember the quote, but, he talks about like any sane person wouldn't start a business because it's fucking hard, basically. So if it's not an immediate yes, then it's a no in regards to starting a business. And I'd say, yeah, it's really rewarding, but the work-life balance thing is probably not really a thing.
Real, it's not. It's a bit of the case of your work's your life, and
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, you can't distinguish anymore between work and life. It's just life.
Yeah.
So, and I guess you only get out what you put in as well. So, but everyone also has a different goals. What they want to do it for. I know some people, and they do it really well. Is like an electrician I know who does a lot of work around here. Like he's like quite often fishing, stuff like that. Like, he's built a work, like a base of work that's like not massively urgent. So I think personally, I know a lot of people who go out and do a business because they can do like 3 days a week and have 2 days off.
Yeah.
But then that also comes with a whole lot of other problems, because if you're doing that, then you're not going to get like to the next level. And I'd say it's fucking hard. Basically, it's rewarding, but it's fucking hard as fuck.
That covers, I think a lot of the challenges, and people might be a bit scared off of it now, thinking about it, which is a no. What are some of the big wins along the way, I guess, like personally and professionally, like Plumbify base yourself, that you've hit these goals, and they're to do, starting your own business, you wouldn't hit them without them, and you're like, wow, that's...
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'd say from a personal point of view, and like I said, you get out what you put in. So I've been putting in hard for 12 or 13 years. So that's the precursor to all this, to say that, you get out what you put in. I guess from a personal financial point of view, and what's helped me now as well, which you don't see it at the time, but it opened doors for you, is I was able to, pay my house off pretty young. I was able to go away on like really good holidays with my wife, but then they also had drawbacks too, because I was away from my business. I wasn't getting paid while I was there, things like that. But it's opened a lot more doors. I was able to build a place in the Riverland for my family, my 2 young kids and my wife, but I also sort of co-built it. So like a builder built it, but I did like a quarter of it, did all the plumbing, did all the other bits, organized all the concreting and that's all subsequential, I guess that's not the right word, but other skills that I've learned along the way that have then, you don't realize you're really even learning them at the time. Even how to act as a builder, like, having my own company, I learned how to organize the shit out of everything. So I was able to organize the concrete at my shack, and this guy comes in before that guy, and that shed gets built, and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, from a financial point of view, wins are, it's open. It's given me a lot more scope to do and have things that people who don't have a business have, I suppose. But I say there's been a lot of wins actually, and it's hard to reflect on them sometimes. But I'd say probably the biggest win that I could just comes to mind right now is just the people I've met. So now I get to, some of my mates are just like some of the most awesome people, man. Like one of my mates, Benny Trues, who owns Elite Scaffolding, like he mentored me, sort of thing. He's like a really like epic business person I look up to. A lot of the guys I have in the plumbing industry, like Steve, like Slacky from SDS and Adelaide Pipe Relining, it's a mate of mine. I guess just the circles I'm able to hang out with now is a win.
That takes me on to another thing just quickly. It's like networking.
Yeah,
is obviously a massive thing that people don't do. You obviously, you've made friends and business and everything just from working relationships, really, isn't it? It's just talking to people and people you think you've never met, and then that gives you more opportunities. So how important is that to you, networking? Do you encourage everyone to
massive.
just uncomfortable decisions. Just put yourself out there if you start your own business and go to things you don't think are going to be worth it. They might be worth it.
I would say that one thing is you never know who you're talking to. So sometimes I've been talking to people and you think they might be the biggest spud in the world. Yeah. But, if you give them the time of day and you treat everyone equally, like some of those people I've found out that are like multi-millionaires, and then they've given me a whole bunch of work later on down the track. I've been lucky enough to get myself into a lot of uncomfortable conversations and uncomfortable situations. I guess not conversations, but networking's not, no one likes to network. It's not nice. No, and if anyone says they like it, then I reckon they're a liar. Yeah. But I guess it's a skill as well. It's a learned skill. You start off terrible at it and you just get better at it. But I think it's so much just about being yourself, man. I don't try and
you stay awkward.
Yeah, I stay awkward. I just tell people I have no the fuck idea what I'm. If I don't try and pretend like I know everything. And you never know who you're talking to. But I guess one of the cool stories I have is in regards to a networking, and a lot of that is leading me to here what we're doing on this microphone. I had a client function at the Master Builders building that I so badly didn't want to go to, because for every reason in the world, it was like on a weeknight. My wife wanted me to be home. She's supportive of me, but of course she wanted me to be home with 2 kids and all that. But it was one that goes back to one of those things. It's it was uncomfortable, and I so badly didn't want to go, but I knew that I should go. No, I knew that I wanted to go. The right word to say. Should is like someone else's values, where I wanted to go. Yeah. So I went so bad I didn't want to go. I got there to the Master Builders building and I almost didn't even want to walk in. I just was, I could just go home. Mate. Go home, be easier. Anyway, I get into the elevator. I walk into the elevator and I look up and because I'm pretty heavy on LinkedIn, I get a lot of shit about it. But the guy I stood next to in the elevator, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying it, would Will Frogley, who's become a bit of a friend and mentor to me, who's the CEO of the Master Builders. And I knew who he was. He wouldn't have known who the hell I was at all, but he knew who I was because I was following him on LinkedIn. Yeah. And he's one of the type of guys.
Probably commenting on everything.
Probably.
Love reacting. And,
probably a few celebration reactions. And so basically he's one of the type of guys, CEO of Master Builders. He's straight away, oh, who are you? I'm Will Frogley. Yeah. I'm thinking, I know who you are, but I said, oh, I'm Matt Zubrinick, from Plumbify. I'm just here for the client function. He was going up there. And I just got chatting to him. He's like, he's a pretty easy dude to chat to. Mm. And he's like, oh, what are your biggest challenges? I said, oh, it's definitely apprentices. We're struggling to get staff and apprentices. So anyway, then we were chatting in the elevator and we got up to the function, chatting some more, and he started introducing me to a whole bunch of people. And this probably goes back to one of the good pieces of advice, actually, is after that, Will gave me his card, and I always make sure when I meet someone now that I've always wanted to meet or that I really appreciate their mentorship or friendship or is, someone who I look up to or whatever. I always just flick him a text after to say, hey, really nice to meet you. Thanks heaps. And this is what I said to Will, just pretty much said Will, really nice to meet you. Thanks heaps for, for the chat. If you ever need anything in the plumbing space, give me a call.
Do say that a lot.
Do I?
Yeah, plumbing space, you do, yeah.
Like the plumbing space. It's cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man, we sort of stayed in touch a little bit. And then one day I was up at the Riverland getting ready for the flood. I remember it vividly. I was moving everything, getting ready for the big 2022 flood.
Yeah.
And I got a call from his PA, Esther, and she's like, Matt, can you come on the podcast today? Master Builders podcast. And I was like, well, I'm in Blanchetown and I'm 2 hours from Adelaide and I've got scrubbiest clothes on. And I was like, and everything in my mind was like, this is just too hard. I'm nervous as hell. I'm going to be shit. But I was like, yep, I'll go. And then I basically said yes, and I worried about it later. Mm-hmm. That's one of my pieces of advice to people is say yes, and then just worry about it later. Yeah. Worry about how you follow through later. So I said, yeah, definitely. I'd love to be there. Hung up the phone. I'm just like, okay, I've got to get to Adelaide within, this was, let's say, 4 or 5 hours, and I had to be there at the podcast studio in Adelaide. I had to get a haircut because I looked like a scrub. I had to go home, have a shower. I had to get into town, into the pod booth thing. And then anyway, then I was on Will's podcast, all from just meeting him in this elevator somewhere where I badly didn't want to be, right? And then in the podcast, Will asked me, who's someone who you really looked up to in the building industry? That was one of his questions. And I said, actually, Steve Walker is someone I've really looked up to, who a lot of people wouldn't know who Steve Walker is, but he's gone pretty low profile on the socials, but he probably was the biggest thing on LinkedIn that I've ever seen, like biggest profile. He was the co-owner of Kookaburra Homes. He took the company from 0 to 100 in a few years and, sold out of it for whatever reason, went and did other things, turned off his socials. So he's pretty low key now, but he was a big deal.
His story alone's right now.
His story
podcast,
alone.
isn't it?
Steve, if you're listening, you got to come on because I want it.
Please, Matt's been talking about it nonstop.
Yeah, his story is insane, right? And so yeah, I shouted out Steve on the podcast. Didn't think anything of it, right? And Steve and Will know each other really well as well. So anyway, then I'm pacing up and down this office, like I was sitting in the office chair. A few months later, after that, 3 months later, I get a text from, "Hey Matt, it's Steve Walker. I got your number off Will. Hope you don't mind. Thanks heaps for shouting me out on the podcast, mate. It means so much to me, more than you'll ever know." And I'm just like, what the fuck? Steve Walker, like one of my idols, I suppose, is messaging me, So then now me and Steve have become really good friends. Steve's like a mentor to me, basically. He's taken me under his wing. And then the first time I ever met Steve at the pub to catch up in person, he said to me just an off the cuff comment, because Steve got really big through podcasting, basically. It was one of the avenues where he got really well known.
Yeah.
He said, you should start your own podcast. Just a total tongue-in-cheek comment. And from that day on, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
24/7 for like 3 months. So this goes to another piece of advice I'd say is, like, to the young people out there or anybody out there, is like, be aware of your visions in your mind. All right. Like everyone has visions in their mind, but a lot of people just don't go any further with them or don't like journal them or write them down. But like, they're really important. They're there for a reason. Like I've had a vision that one day I've never said this publicly and I'm going to cop heaps of shit for it and everyone's going to think I'm a wanker. But, of like one day my vision, I believe it in my bones that I'll have a Ferrari and I'll be able to take like young kids, show them, like inspire them to dream big as well. And like, that's like a vision that I've had in my mind. Right. So I document this shit down. And then that was one of them. When Steve said this podcast comment, I couldn't stop thinking about it every day for 3 months. So then I thought, what, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. But all this, I guess, the long stories, Luke, but all this comes back to the fact that the question you asked me about learnings or whatever it was, forget the question now, but it comes back to doing uncomfortable things.
Yeah. Yeah. That has covered a lot of the podcast questions, the why to start and everything. It's Steve Walker. I guess it is unusual for a trade-based business to have a podcast. So so you know where that came from, you're thinking about it, but what made you think I'm going to do it? Like, what did you think you were going to get out of it from the start? Was it experience? Was it exposure? How did you want to represent the Plumbify brand?
I guess it was a couple of pronged approach, and I guess I don't want to give too much away because there's lots of reasons and a lot of them come from Steve. So, but I guess I wanted to let everyone into the brand. I wanted to show everyone that what we're about. You got to get people following the journey. Okay, that's an important piece of information for people is that people want to be involved in the journey. Personally, I don't think on social media, we don't have a big social media yet or anything like that, but you look at people's socials or their websites or whatever it is, and they're showing like photos of plumbing, photos of like a tap. No one gives a fuck about the tap or the plumbing. The consumer wouldn't know the difference. People care about the journey They want to be involved with someone who's like a company who's fucking putting it out there, trying their hardest.
And they want to know people, don't they?
Yeah.
I guess like we're not just plumbing, gas fitting, leak detecting, and roofing. We're the people behind
That's it.
I guess. Yeah.
So you're giving people an insight into the people here, the team, the missions, the values we've got, that getting on the journey, getting on board the Plumbify journey to become the best, the most trusted B2B corporate plumbing service provider in Australia. That's one of the reasons. There's lots of reasons. I wanted to give the boys and the girls here like a bit of a platform to have fun. Do some sort of marketing that's not just paying for Google ads or
radio ads.
Yeah, something that's just fun. Yeah. Well, but one of the, like, personally, from a selfish point of view, I really wanted to do it because I actually wanted to force myself to learn new skills. So a couple of those were how to ask better questions, because I think that's so important in business and life, is like you need to be asking the right questions. And I personally didn't feel like I was good at it, and like I'm still working on it, but like you ask a shit question, you'll get a shit answer, so I wanted to force myself to ask better questions. I wanted to force myself to get better at research, and I wanted to be able to get in front of interesting people and learn their stories. Yeah. And, it's all just a bit of fun as well, but it's marketing at the same time. So it's basically trying to, like I said, me and you talk and strategize all the time, and identify that if we don't have a brand where people want to come and work here, people want to be part of the journey, know they're going to get looked after, know that they're not just a number. We need to create that and get it out into the public so people understand what we're about. And then that in turn will, hopefully create a pipeline of people who want to come and work here, good people who want to come and work here, because, me and you both identified that without that pipeline of people wanting to come and work here, we're going to top out on the growth. We could go and sign every contract under the sun. But if we don't have the good people to facilitate that growth, then we just can't grow. So, but also just to do fun stuff, man. We've got a few things in the pipeline that
there's a bit in the pipeline, is it?
There's been some good interest, Luke, hasn't there? We're both on the Instagram together, and we're getting a lot of DMs and stuff, aren't we? That people are interested to come on, and got a few little things.
But like it's probably weird for a trade-based business to start, but the opportunities out of it are just endless and unreal. It's like it's interesting, like you said. It's fun to build a brand.
It's fun. I guess, like what people need to understand though is that, you have to get yourself to a certain point to be able to do this. Like if I didn't have you, the team that allows me to spend, a few hours a day or a few hours a week or whatever it is I'm doing this stuff, just wouldn't be possible. Because this all costs actually quite a bit of money to do.
Doesn't get edited for free.
No, we have a full-time editor and all sorts of stuff. But, I figure like you can spend, $1,000 on Google ads every week, or you can spend $1,000 on doing something fun. So the return on investment isn't like immediate though. And I don't know if you're going to ask me this question, but I'm going to say it now before I forget. Is that advice? You said advice to people who want to start a business or whatever. Was that a question you had for me earlier? Is one of the main differences about when you own a business compared to when you're on wages is your time horizon is different. So when I make a decision today, I'm not making it for tomorrow. I'm making that decision or that, structural change or whatever for like a 1 to 5 year time horizon. I know that like if I spend $1,000 today, it's not coming back to me tomorrow. So I'm working on a longer time horizon. And I guess, and then that ties back, I suppose, to when I was lucky enough, I suppose. Well, lucky is not the right word because it's just hard work, but to set myself up a little bit financially at the start. When I first started, it's allowed me that time horizon to, I can think 1 to 5 years in advance. because I've done the hard work early, paid down a lot of my stuff, you know, which has given me that ability now to think a bit bigger.
And do.
Yeah, which is important when you're
Yeah.
running a business, because what people need to understand is that, it's a long feedback loop. So, you know, you make a decision now, you know, you decide, like I decided I wanted to do leak detection. It's not like next week I'm suddenly going to be rich.
Yeah.
You know, like I've got to put in like years and years of work. So it's, you need to be thinking, you know, ahead basically. Yeah.
So let's come back to the brand of Plumbify. I know like we've got a big focus here on values and culture building. You tell us about those values and how you came up with them. Are they different to your personal values? Do they cross over? And how do we, I guess, or how do you build them into the business? How do you get everyone on board with it? And what do we do to keep them going? Like not.
Yeah, I guess values are super important, and that's one of the things I learned from doing like the business courses and stuff that I've done over the years, is that just values are, I guess, going back to when we implemented them a few years ago, is like, I think, you know, a lot of it comes from me because I'm driving the company, but also I went to everyone in the company at the time and said, okay, like, what are our company values? What do we want this company to be, to stand for, you know? So we came up with, you know, 8 or 9 or 10 values, and bloody, I'm not going to remember them right now, but, you know, a lot of them are like, you know, mateship, doing the right thing, have a crack, raise the standard, integrity, you know, but like not just bullshit ones either, where it's like, you know, not integrity, just like, oh, we did the right thing all the time. Like
there's a sentence, there's
a meaning behind them all. And I guess the thing about values is that in a business, and yeah, I guess they do align in ways with my personal values. But these are values that the business can operate under, that everyone, that it's like a framework for people to make decisions.
Yeah.
Essentially that's how the values so it's like, okay, people don't have to go to you to ask every single question, like, oh, how do I solve this problem, or what should I do with this customer, or whatever. It's like you can have a license or whatever to make decisions that concur with our values. And if you make a decision that aligns with the values, that's what they're there for. You can't go wrong, you know. But I think it was a good process in getting everyone's thoughts on, like, hey, you come to work every day. None of us have won the lotto, so we all got to come here. We might as well make it something, you know, fun and stand for something. So like, what do you want to stand for? I think one of the main ones that came out of that for me was that we came up with a company was like the mateship one.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like we back each other in.
Yeah.
When someone needs something, we're there for them, you know? If someone needs to be lifted up, we lift them up. And then if someone needs to be also on the other side of things, someone needs to be, you know, told that that's not good enough, that's part of it as well.
That's it. I guess the values are about, you know, upholding people to them as well. Like we all made them together, and you sign it on together for it as well. And that's what gives everyone the accountability, which is one of the values, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm freaked out because of the camera issues we just had. So I think we're good now.
We're good.
That that's a learning we had today.
To
put a new memory card in every time. It's going to be a new
it's
one.
all learning.
It's learning though.
It is. Cut a lot to Plumbify there. I think I'd like to touch on yourself, and I think this is a massive thing I think we talked about it a little bit, like the work-life balance. Having a lot of tradies have a family and a business. How's it balanced? Because I think that's a thing that maybe they look over or maybe don't talk about with their partner. And I think it's a massive issue that you know, you start a business, but you got to also balance it to a point.
It's a good one. It's tough. It's I've had to make a lot of sacrifices. I've missed lots of milestones. I haven't been able to be there. I didn't get to have, you know, paternity leave and be there with my son every day for a month or whatever. I didn't get any of those things. There's definitely sacrifices, but now, I guess as I get older, and now building the team, I'm getting better at balancing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is always like pull it like a tug of war, I suppose, in a way where I'm like, I know I need to be at work, but I also really want to badly be home to see my kids. So I guess I've tried to make myself like rules, like especially of late. And I think it's more when it was just me and my wife with no kids, like we were sweet. She probably didn't want to see me that much anyway. So, but I guess the kids changes everything.
Yeah.
But now I guess I've just made rules, and I'm pretty strict with them. It's like I get home for 4 o'clock or 4:30 every day, and maybe the sacrifice on the other end is I get to work at 6 or 5:30 or whatever. I make sure that I pick up my kids from school and do those sorts of things. And I don't negotiate on them, you know? So, but I think one of the biggest things actually, man, that me and my wife have done lately, and I was working on it a fair bit longer before my wife was, but understanding like your personal values and then the values of your partner, So I know that basically my top 3 values are basically business, family, and like connection, I suppose, but you look at the business being number 1 value and family being number 2, like, they're basically the same, but it's on the same par, but you have to pick one to be 1 and you have to pick one to be 2. They're totally conflicting.
Yeah.
They don't, you know what I mean? Like business being number 1 and family being number 2, you'd think like, how the fuck do those values intertwine with each other?
That's probably the same for everyone thinking or wanting to start a plumbing business and going to with a family. They're thinking like that just doesn't go hand in hand, does it? Like a lot of people would have that same 1 and 2.
So I think, what I've learned recently, and it's been a bit of a game changer, and then I got my wife to come along to this thing as well. And basically my wife's biggest or definitely number one value, and I'd say like it's very common for the wife to have that value, is her number 1 value is family. She doesn't have a value on business or wealth creation. My wife couldn't care about that. She only cares about, family experiences, those sorts of things. So what I learned to do was understand how my number 1 value of business actually helps my wife's number 1 value of family. And then how did my wife's number 1 value of family then also correspond and improve and make better my number 1 value of business. So it's like you linking them and realizing that they're actually all, even though they seem from the outside to be totally opposite of each other and conflicting, which I always thought they were, actually they're not. So, for instance, as an example, I think, my wife's number 1 and my number 2 value, but my wife's number 1 value is family, mine is business. So one of the things we get to do with our family is go to the river in the shack, but we wouldn't have the river if we didn't have business.
Yeah.
So you can link these things back to each other. And I've had Mojo on the podcast, who's one of the guys who helped me with it before. And so it's about like linking the values together and even doing it with your own values. Like, so how does my number 1 value of business, which seems totally conflicting with family, how does it actually help that value? And linking them in your brain, like neuroscience shit.
Yeah.
And realizing that they're actually all work together in harmony, I suppose.
I think that's a really good piece of advice for aspiring business owners, is to, I guess, why do you want to start your own plumbing business and what are your values? Like, what's your goal before you do it? I suppose, otherwise, like how you said, when you started, you've had to go through a rebrand and realize everything. But if you can get on the front foot and do it first, and that's probably
I would definitely say that's huge, man. I've got a lot of mates who come to me in 1 week, and my mate who I say he's going to know who it is when he listens to this, but whatever, I don't care. 1 week wants to grow the business, the next week doesn't want to grow the business, wants to shrink it, wants to grow it again. And I always just come back and say, like, the reason why you don't know what you want is because you don't know where you want to go. Like, mate, it's just like a cliche, isn't it? But it's so true. It's like, how are you going to know, like, how to make decisions in day-to-day life or even bigger goals if you don't have an end goal? so that's one of the biggest pieces of advice. Yeah, if you want to start a business, like the end goal can change, definitely, and it does. But like, actually, at least have something to shoot for. And like, yeah, if it's a maybe, it's a no in regards to starting a business. But if you wholeheartedly want to start a business, just at least set yourself some sort of target. Like, okay, at the moment, I'm happy just to work on my own, but I want to work on this skill or that skill, and then maybe in 3 years' time, I might want to get to 10 people or whatever. But you need to have some sort of like 5-year target that you're working toward. And I guess that's what's been massive for us, is that we implemented the mission, so it's like we know why we're here every day. We know what we're trying to do. We know what we're trying to achieve. Without that, how the fuck could we make any decisions like we would be able to?
Do you want to quickly just touch on the mission that we have, and again, like you're saying just then, why it's so important?
Yeah. So the mission is to be the most sought after corporate plumbing service provider nationally. And I suppose that's also changed now to plumbing and roofing service provider nationally. So the mission is sort of like the what, I suppose, what you're here for, what, and then the vision is like how. This is how I understand it. And the purpose is sort of like the why, So the vision, how we're going to get to the mission is the vision. So the vision is to basically build the best possible team that to get us to our mission. Like it's that simple.
And that goes back to doing this and the culture building and the branding. Everything does relate back to
everything. Relates back. Everything we're doing right now, every decision I make in my life and business revolves back to the mission, the vision, and the values, man. And my own personal values, the business values. Like all this shit people see, man, like this costs a lot of money, man. You know what I mean? But I do it because it's part of the mission. It's fun and yeah. So, but I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff if I didn't have a bigger goal.
Might be clip chasing here a little bit. We were just talking about before how we got some stuff in the pipeline to do with the brand of the company. Give me some keywords about what's coming up and what's maybe Plumbify's aspirations. Don't just feel
for the potties.
I guess potties and Plumbify as a whole.
Plumbify as a whole.
Where we're going. Mostly the potty.
I guess the potty, man. We've it started off slow, and I guess it's still building, but we've had quite a lot of cool things in the works and a lot of pretty heavy hitters interested. So we've
any keywords there we can
tour,
yeah,
that's
good.
That's a hashtag tour. So
just Instagram,
yeah. So there might be an Instagram tour happening, possibly, of like some Instagram heavy hitters. Might be possibly we're trying to put in the works. May or may not be like a van involved or anything, something
national is another.
Yeah, it's
very cryptic. This is going to be a cryptic clip.
Could be like think of the casting couch, but for the van level one.
Yeah,
might be something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a bit of stuff going on with the potty, man. So we've had some people interested to possibly come and help us out with it and stuff, which obviously totally can't talk about it, and it's not over the line or anything, but possibly might have a trip to Melbourne for. I don't want to
they're unknown,
yeah. But for some conventions and stuff like that happening. So yeah, lots of exciting things.
Yeah, good
on the potty.
I'm sure everyone's had a few questions answered there. I think that's pretty good for any aspiring business owner or just tradesman as a whole. And I really think we've distinguished why, like, we've done this and why Plumbify is where it is. And I'm sure a lot of people do look up to you and look up to where Plumbify is, and grateful for the opportunity you give as well. So I think we'll end it there. We'll probably have to do an Instagram Q&A to, a few more questions out there after this. I'm sure people will want some, maybe a part 2. Maybe a part 2 after this. So big thanks to you for coming and sharing your story.
You did well, mate. Thanks for interviewing me.
No worries.
And we're just trying to give the people what they want, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
That's my other thing I keep saying, isn't it?
Yeah, give it to people what they
want. We've been hit up a few times and they want to know the story. So, yeah, I guess I'm, you know what, man, like, one final thing I'd say is, like, I'm just a normal bloke, man.
Yeah.
Like, people, I think as you get bigger and bigger, and like we're still only a small plumbing company, man, but people more and more people like look up to you and think you're like some sort of dude who can like achieve, like for instance, when I look at something like an Elon Musk, or someone like that, and I think like this guy must be able to do. He's got more than 24 hours in a day. Like he can, but like, and I'm not trying to like put myself on the level of Elon Musk or anything weird like that, but I'm just saying that people tend to like look up to you and think you're some sort of like, I don't know, machine or something. But it's like, there's no secret, man. Like, I'm just a normal dude with a family who's basically just trying as fucking hard as I can.
Yeah.
That's all it comes down to, man. And taking risks, like calculated risks, and just enjoying it, man. And now I get to enjoy building like a team. So now I'm enjoying different shit. I'm not necessarily doing plumbing anymore, or finding leaks or anything that I used to do. But now I'm got the flip side of it, which I'm done. I'm doing like a business apprenticeship, man. You know, and I've got people behind me now that I'm lucky enough to, like you mentioned, networking. So a lot of the stuff I'm learning is just from my networks. And now I get to, do the other flip side of things, which is like I'm really enjoying, which is building a team. But I'm no different to any other person, man. Like, I don't know the answer to everything. I'm shit at most things. I think that one of the things to let people know is that, like no one's good at everything. Like, double down. I would say double down on your strengths and try get people around you who can help you with your weaknesses or can fill those gaps. Because I know that I'm only, good at 3 or 4 things. And I back myself in to do that. But there's a hell of a lot of things that I'm not good at.
So you're only good at your weakest link and fill them in.
So that's a key for people. I don't want people to at all look up to me like I'm some sort of like special dude with a plumbing company because we've got a podcast right now. I'm just a normal dude who's trying my hardest. That's it.
It's a normal good bloke.
Yeah, just awkward as fuck. And, just putting myself out there and just making sure that I'm always uncomfortable. That's probably the biggest bit of advice, because a lot of the people on Instagram have wanted some business advice from me, and I feel uncomfortable with it because I'm no business guru at all. But it's probably the biggest one is like stay uncomfortable. If a decision feels uncomfortable to make, it's probably the right one. So
I think I speak for everyone on Instagram, everyone here. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for just sharing.
No worries.
It's just good.
Part 2
coming up.
All right. Thanks, Luke. Thanks for tuning in to another Plumbify podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and all the usual podcast platforms.